ourselves comfortable and just slow things down a little bit. There was a time in the past when I would not have conversations before the start of a practice. I'd look quite serious, not wanting to excite anybody. But then now I like to see this practice as reflecting real life, which is full of conversations, food, smiles, laughter, sometimes tears, so that we can learn how to intentionally step beyond the mind. And so let's just pretend that up until now we've been stirring the mind up, almost like a pail filled with water. And we've put a little spade into it and stirred it up. And that's what life is like. With all of its relationships, with all of the interesting conversations, the disagreements, the bills. It's a little bit like putting a spade into a pail of water and stirring it all up. And now, when I ring the bell, we're going to simply remove the spade from the pail. So the mind is still moving because of the momentum that we've created. The water is still whirling around. But have you noticed? Our bodies have stopped moving. At least to a large extent, the bodies have stopped moving. We've switched off our televisions. We've ended most of our casual conversations. We're not browsing the internet. We've asked those around us for a little bit of privacy. So we're no longer adding any new momentum to the mind, which makes it so much easier to simply sit back and watch, observe. And that spade that's been stirring the water around, it didn't just start with the conversations we were having a few moments ago. It includes everything that happened earlier on today. It includes everything that happened over the last few days, weeks, months, years, all the way up until our earliest memories. And so the speed that you find your mind moving at in this moment, it's a result of all of that which has happened throughout our history. And so don't feel upset with yourself. Don't expect your mind to immediately go still. Because that's not what this practice is about. This practice begins by simply observing the mind. But first, in order to observe the mind, in order to observe something, don't you need to separate yourself from it? And that's not very difficult. It's not a difficult process because if you just paid a little bit of attention to your mind, you'll notice that the mind exists primarily within that concept called time, either in the past or the future, or comparing this present moment to the past or the perceived expected future. And if the mind exists within time, both past or future, then in order to separate ourselves from the mind, all we need to do is to tap into the present moment. And that's where you find my voice guiding you towards. But how do we access the present moment? We can do this in bite-sized pieces. Firstly, by simply noticing, yes, the mind is traveling, the mind is time traveling, but our bodies, where is your body right now? Your body is on a chair, seated on a chair or a cushion on the floor or a mat. But your body is most certainly in the present moment. And what is your body? Trillions of cells. And some of these cells, they make up the five senses. And these five senses become our doorways into the present moment. And you could start with one of the most vast of them all, and that would be the surfaces of skin, your sense of touch, where you feel the temperature of the room around you, where you feel your breath, mainly through these areas around your nose, maybe the stretching of skin and around the chest and stomach. The parts which are covered in clothing, the way the skin interacts with the fabric that's wrapped around your body as clothing. And then those parts which rest on the surfaces underneath you, the cushion, the mats, the chairs. And of course, if you're on a chair, then your feet, the soles of your feet may be on the ground. You may feel the texture of the socks that you're wearing, or the carpet, or the hard flooring. And this is how you tap into the present moment. And we call this a practice because things are generally quite good right now when we embark on this practice. You're not in the middle of a chaotic situation, but in life, I'm sure every single one of us has started to realize many things happen around us. Some relationships start, some fade away. Our physical bodily conditions, they change from time to time. Finances change. There are changes occurring around us all the time. Some of these, in fact, all of these, everything that happens around us, it gets filtered through the mind. And the mind has decided, it has learned from its community, from its parents, from the advertising industry. It has learned what is good and what is bad. And then it labels the different experiences as either good or bad. And for most of us, we spend most of our lives identified with this mind, spending almost all of our life moving towards those things that we like and fighting against those things that we dislike. But so long as we are identified with the mind, we're simply acting out a program. And the programmers, they were our parents, our guardians, our schools, the books we read, the movies that we watched, the newspapers that we follow. During this hour that we have together, we simply remind ourselves that we can step beyond this program. We can bring ourselves above the mind. And that does, in many ways, sum up this practice. It's a practice where we learn, where we remind ourselves how to develop a new relationship with the mind. And this new relationship, it's one where we observe it from a space that is so much larger than the thought process itself. It's where we watch it, where we observe it from a space that is so much kinder than the thought process. And many teachers, they also speak of this space of being a space of wisdom. And if you notice, life is about making decisions. Often it's about taking decisions, whether to, from the minute you leave your home, whether to turn right or left, whether to apply here or there, whether to pick up the phone or not, when to pick up the phone, when to call somebody, which publisher to contact, which agent to contact, which product to buy, which partner to choose. Should we choose to share our lives with somebody? So far as we identify ourselves with the mind, it is the program that is making the choices for us. It is the mind with all of its input, its past experiences that are deciding who we get into partnerships with, what we eat, what we do. Which is why the present moment becomes so precious, because it allows us to tap into the wisdom that is above and beyond the mind, that sees so much more than the mind, that knows so much more than that mind, which we can liken to a little cloud, or even a series of clouds. If you can visualize some clouds, each cloud representing the mind with its thoughts. When we were young children, it started off as little white, fluffy little clouds. Our parents would have told us something, and then that would have been enforced by education system or other teachers. And then the books, the magazines came along. And then there were more clouds, and soon these clouds, which were just individual thoughts, they began to accumulate. They began to join together. To become beliefs. And many of our beliefs are like endless clouds, not letting in any sunlight, just grayness, but simply an accumulation of individual thoughts. And if you can imagine those moments in your life when you felt frustrated, fearful, angry, upset, that's always an indication of identification with the mind, especially loneliness. Simply because that is the nature of the cloud, that is the nature of the mind, to separate us from those around us, to separate us from nature, to separate us from this planet, to separate us from this universe. And a moment ago, we spoke about this practice being one that raises us above the clouds. So just imagine yourself being confused or frustrated or fearful or angry. With the ringing of this bell, bring yourself into the present moment. Stop moving with the clouds. Rise above the clouds. Gradually feel yourself rising. And if you need help, use your breath, almost as though your breath was a hot air balloon that would help you rise above the clouds. Breathe in deeply, feeling every sensation that enters and then leaves your body. Knowing, understanding that every sensation can only be experienced in this present moment. And it is this present moment that lies above the clouds. And soon you find the clouds becoming lighter and lighter. The shade of gray gets lighter, it gets brighter. And just like a plane moving above the clouds, you find yourself breaking through high, higher and higher, each breath allowing you to rise above the clouds. And the sunshine, it bathes your skin bright, everything illumined. This space that you find yourself in, where the skies are blue and the sun shining so brightly, this is the space that many teachers refer to as awareness, presence, consciousness. Some religions, they even refer to this space as God. But we don't need to use words or labels in order to comprehend it. Because very often these words, they suck us back into the clouds. We simply call it the present moment. And it is a space of kindness because it is the very space that covers every other cloud. Every other cloud representing the minds of those around us, many of whom we've met, but most of whom we have not met. And this space, being this space, it gives us wisdom because we understand for once why people do the things that they do, why they say the things that they say, why they act the way they act. And it's almost always because of the pain that they experience. And you know that because right now, how do you feel? How do you feel? And it's beginning to dawn on you that when you feel good, when you feel peaceful, when you step outside of your mind, when you are above your mind, when you release your personality, your form, your mind, you no longer want to speak harsh words. You would not hurt even a fly. People may walk past you at this particular moment and say something unkind, but you will smile. Or if not, you will not react the way you normally do. And it dawns on you that reactions, they almost always come purely from identification with the mind. And this is the wisdom that we tap into, giving permission to those around us. No longer attempting to control, perhaps with an understanding that having seen this, the anger surface, the sadness surface, for once, they may be in a position to move beyond it. And that applies to us as well. No longer being too hard on ourselves when we express anger, when we see frustration, fear arising. Allowing, giving it permission. Yet no longer needing to act upon it. No longer needing to say hurtful words, but experiencing it from above, watching it arise, take form, and then pass by just like the clouds that they are. Feel this light of wisdom bathing your whole body, awakening every cell within your body. Releasing an intention, because we often, as human beings identified with the mind, we underestimate the power of intention. But up until this point in the practice, have you noticed how we have been directing the mind? We directed the mind to different parts of the body. We directed the mind to visualize clouds and the clearing above the clouds and the bright white light that bathes us. It is this awareness, this larger part of us that has the ability to set out core intentions. And let us, at this point, set out an intention that the healing qualities within our body all awaken. Those parts within our DNA which have to do with balance, regeneration, healing, repairing, all awaken. So that any parts within our body that may not be functioning to the optimum now be allowed to resurface back into the space of equilibrium, health, harmony, stillness, and most importantly, kindness. I use the word kindness for our body simply because it is when the cells exist in harmony with each other that we find ourselves, our bodies balancing, healing, repairing. And with the next bell, up until this moment, the light has been bathing our skin, refreshing, recharging. Let your body dissolve, becoming this light. Very gently, the lines and the curves that make up your body beginning to fade. As you find yourself traveling at the speed of light, covering every mountain peak, every ocean surface, every valley, every blade of grass, every flower, every living thing, every inanimate object, in the quietest desert to the busiest city. This is what kindness feels like. This quality that we experience through this light, which is the very source of life on this planet. That is the very reason for the oxygen that we breathe, for the warmth that grows our food, that feeds us, that keeps us warm. Notice its ability, the way in which it does not discriminate, differentiate, does not see one person or one animal as more important than the next. It does not judge. Instead, all are dear to it. Let this light that you have now merged into, let it reach all those around you, whether near or far, who are dear to you. Let this light reach every one of these people, pets, people who mean a lot to you. And whatever you may be feeling right now, set out an intention that they too will experience this kindness, this stillness, this balance, this healing. Let it bathe their bodies, let it bathe their organs, and they don't need to know. Because you are tapping into a part of yourself that moves even faster than the speed of light, and that is the speed of thought. Now let us move beyond time. And if and as we move beyond time, we share this light with all of those who have left their form, who have been a part of our lives in the past, but who may not be inhabiting their physical bodies at this moment. But it doesn't matter when you step outside of time. It does not matter when you step beyond the mind, because you enter into a timeless state, a timeless space. Releasing an intention that they too share in this practice and experience the stillness and the kindness and the beauty of this moment. And then notice that little judgment. I don't know if judgment is the right word, but how we see some people as more important than others. And that's inevitable. We all have our attachments. But now let us move, notice these thoughts, these labels, the way in which we label some as more important to us than others, some as mattering more than others. With the ringing of this bell, let go of that. And like the light, allow this light to reach all other living beings equally. Of whom you know, but most you have never met. But yet, just like the light, the bright light emanating from the sun, it reaches every surface, every being, releasing an intention that they too experience the stillness, the kindness, the beauty, the contentment that joins us as we step into the present moment. All of the vegetation, all of the animals, which include the birds, the land animals, those that live within the sea and the oceans, the whole planet, the very reason we are alive. With its perfect levels of oxygen, with its gravity, with its warmth, with its soil, allowing this light to bathe every grain of sand, every pebble, every boulder, every mountain, every valley, almost as though it was all contained within us. Releasing an intention that there be balance, that there be equilibrium, that there be stillness, that there be peace, that there be kindness. As we recognize this deep and intrinsic connection between ourselves and each other, between ourselves and nature, from every insect to every animal, from every plant to every fruit tree and root. Allowing the earth to share its energy with us, connecting ourselves to this planet, which has existed far longer than any of our forms, that has sustained not only our ancestors, but our greatest teachers, who stood and taught under the same sun, who stood, who slept under the same moon, stepping outside of time so that it's all happening in the present moment. All here, now. And now I'm going to ring the bell. And it's just an opportunity to stretch, to move, to make yourselves comfortable before we move into the final few minutes of today's practice. Here comes the bell. And as you settle back into a posture, which may be a completely new posture, let us continue with the practice of grounding ourselves onto this planet, onto this earth, by visualizing within our mind's eye the image of a tree. And this is a very old tree, a tree that's been here for a very long time. Releasing all judgments that one may have of the word old and infusing it with wisdom, with beingness, with a quality of knowing, of kindness, of wisdom, of being so filled with experiences. And now merging into this image, our bodies merging into this image of this tree, so that our arms become branches to this great tree, the trunk of our body turning into the trunk of this great tree. The ears, the face, the nose, branches, the top, the side, and the different parts of this tree. And then finding those points that anchor us into the earth, finding your center of gravity. If it's within or around your navel area, your stomach area, lowering it down first into your chair or cushion, and then deeper down into the flooring and the earth, moving it deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you need help doing this, breathe, use your breath, visualize your breath as if it were a light, as if you were breathing in light. And this light moving down through your trunk and then deep into the crust of the earth, through the roots, those points of contact between your body and the surface underneath. Find yourself anchored to the present moment. Let every root be our anchor into the present moment, where we no longer need to be carried by the winds and the storms and the changing seasons that so often brush against our branches. Notice your ability to separate yourself from the thoughts and the emotions that move through your branches. Your ability to shift your identification from the changing seasons, from the changing world around you, to this deeply rooted, wise tree. Where does this wisdom come from? Through the many experiences we have had throughout our life, some of them challenging, and there were harsh storms, there were very trying seasons, sometimes even droughts where there was no water. But can you notice how every experience, especially those experiences that were challenging and painful, how they brought about greater understanding, greater compassion, greater levels of kindness. How these experiences developed our ability to appreciate beauty, sometimes so subtle that in the past they would have easily escaped us. And this is the wisdom of the tree, to appreciate every sunset as unique and different, to recognize every sunrise as unique and separate from the one before. Every moment a new moment. Take in a deep breath now, the very same breath that moves deep into the earth's crust through your roots. But each intake of breath representing a new beginning, a new start. Every new start creating a new root, anchoring you, even anchoring us more deeply into the present moment. And once we feel strong enough, giving our attention to the mind, to the changing seasons, to the storms and the winds, but dancing, the branches swaying, allowing, no longer resisting. Recognizing the whole ecosystem of life that we sustain just by being, not needing to do, just through the sitting, breathing, no longer needing to even communicate verbally in order to share kindness and wisdom, but being the very example of it, living it, breathing it. From this point onwards, releasing an intention that we shall see life as an opportunity to experience this kindness that we know about, this kindness that we have experienced throughout our lives. sometimes more vivid than others. But now, from this point, seeing life as simply an opportunity to express and experience this kindness, to share this kindness, to share this stillness, to share this contentment. Letting kindness be the core intention behind every breath that we take. Letting kindness be that very core behind every word that is spoken. Letting kindness flow through our fingers and our limbs and our bodies and every cell of our body as we move through life from moment to moment and breath to breath. Letting the next bell symbolize the beginning of this new practice where we become the very expression of kindness. And the practice begins. Please feel free to unmute yourselves. I'm very